Okay, so we've got the halves together, we've installed the seat and all the other areas, and we're really starting to look the business. So if we just drop this camera down. So actually the woodwork is looking very, very nice, as you can see in here. We've got this nice instrument panel working, a charm down in there. It's very delicate to hold this. It's probably not as fragile, and if I was dealing with any other aircraft you'd be like handling it, but with this I'm just terrified bits break off because it just seems so very fine and fiddly. One thing is showing through this completely, it goes together fantastic. There's no problems with it at all. Certain little areas I found that you don't even need glue, you can pop it together. Now if you recall some of the other great builds we've done recently, such as the Spitfire, Tamiya Spitfire 132nd, the 132nd Mustang, along the same lines where you fit parts together and they hold their own shape without needing glue, then you can come along and just tap them with glue, which is quite handy from our point of view. But hopefully you can see down here it's really starting to look the part, really looking exactly what we want it to be. So next thing up, skipping through sort of the manual a little bit, the one thing I am finding with it, certain areas it forgets to tell you, so you sort of go along and it's like, well, hold on, what about another bit? Okay, and it shows you in the manual quite clearly about it. For instance, if I just move this out of the way, you can see down here we have this point here, and it's talking about these black bars coming across and painting them, okay, and obviously installing it onto the fuselage half. And things, and you think, okay, that's great, but it's only when you move on a couple of pages you actually find out down here that this is the part it's actually talking about. So it's a bit confusing, because sometimes you come along and you think, well, where's that? And then you go through the manual and you find it a little bit later on. So that's my real tip for this one. Don't take anything at face value, read right the way through it, and if you can't find the part, double check it a few times. It's usually in here somewhere. It is literally just finding the part that it's talking about. Now the area we're going to be sort of trying to represent a little bit is this area here. So what we've got is this rigging wire. Now it's done as a sort of an optional feature. You certainly don't get the parts in it for the kit, but you've got this rigging wire that will go around and really bring this area here to life, which will be really nice. And then down here we've got the control cables all coming off of it. Now this is personal choice if you wanted to do this. You're not going to see 99% of it anyway, okay? It's going to be there, it's going to be closed up. It's just going to be one of those things of the enjoyment of the build. And obviously, as you all know, I'm terrified of rigging and things like that, so this will be my start into this. A couple of options, okay? I've got here plastic rod. Now this is 0.15, and according to the instructions, this is the size we're going to be needing for control rods and bracing rods in this interior area. Trouble with it is, as you can see, it's very floppy, it's very loose. Trying to keep them tensioned is going to be pretty hard. So I've got here a selection of piano wires. Now you can pick these up at your normal shops and things like that, your model shops. RC shops definitely will have them, okay? Dirt cheap, you're literally talking pence. I think they work out around about 40 pence a metre here for each of the sizes. So I've just gone down and bought a couple of sizes. So we've got in here the 0.15, obviously we're going to be needing that for all the rigging and control wires over here. I've also got 0.2 and 0.25 as well. Now the idea of having the slightly bigger wires is a bit of personal license on this. If you can't see them that well, we can upscale so you can see them and make sure everyone takes note of exactly what you've done. Otherwise, if they're too fine, you're never going to see it. For instance, I have got here, in this little tiny bag here, this is 0.1, which is completely, again, it's, very, very loose. You won't see it in there, it will be like hairs. So that's why we're going to go with a 0.15. We've got it here. Now we can cut this with our scissors like we do everything else. But what's going to be the knack for doing this one is measuring the lengths we're actually going to need, okay, and then obviously cutting them to size. So we know we have a diagonal one going at the back. The diagonals are going to be quite easy to do, okay, so we can just pop it in. We know it's going to have to go like to there, and then hopefully, he says, saying this stuff is easy to cut. My excellent scissors aren't going to do it, so we will need some little cutters. Nail cutters are great for this. Little top tip, because you can pop them in, okay, and then just pop them in, and you should find it will cut. Normally, obviously this piano wire is extremely tough. Upgrade to a bigger pair of scissors and see what happens. Okay, there we go. So that's our part. We'll be switching to pliers, I think, for doing this one. Now installing these, it's going to be a case of obviously going around, popping them all in. So to start with, we will just grab my tweezers. I'm just going to check its length and see what it looks like. So we know this one is going to be diagonally across. Okay, so when it's in, it's going to look something like that when we're in there. Okay, now from my point of view, I don't want to be going around putting massive blobs of glue everywhere, so we're going to be using our good old friend here, Crystal Clear, to mount these in place. That way we're not making a huge mess. So again, we'll just grab a little bit of white glue, just slightly out the way down here. And then the easiest way, I think, is going to be to dip both ends. So we're just going to pop one end in one end, one end in the other. Okay, and then what we'll do, we're just going to come along. Okay, place in position. So you're getting these all to, it's going to be a long old fiddly job, but I really do think it's going to be worth it. So we just drop this top cam down, you can see that's the effect we've gone with this wire. So by the time we go around and do everywhere else on this, I think it will really be, you know, well worth that little bit of extra time. And I think you will see certainly some of it. That particular part I don't think you're going to see at all, because obviously you're only going to see what's exactly above. But I think the side ones might be a nice little touch to it, and it'll just liven it up. And also before we install it, we'll take some nice photos of it, because it's something to sort of cherish of all the work you've done, because again, once it's closed up, we're never going to see it. So let's get on with these. Okay, so I've been working at this, and obviously first time I've been doing anything, so, you know, sort of running it blind. A couple of little tips that I can pass on to you. As you can see now, we've got the nice wire framing looking very nice down in there. Let's see what it's coming around the back, all very shaky. But as I said, it's looking really, really nice. And I must admit, you know, hate to say this, I'm really, really enjoying this a lot more than I ever thought. This wiring business, okay, whilst it's very fiddly, it's once you get the run of it, and a couple of little tips. First of all, set of calipers, okay? What you can actually do then is measure the distance that you actually want your bit of line. Okay, then I've been using over here, so I know it's this length. I've not even got it switched on, okay? So then we just come in, okay, and I just pop it in like this, okay, grab both ends, cut, okay, and we're good to go. We can fit this one in. The trouble that you have putting them in, I'm doing it with good old-fashioned Crystal Clear, and to be honest, I've got it down here with a little bit of water mixed in to make it a little bit more fluid. But what we're actually finding is very difficult to get the two wires to cross over, because they do have a thickness, obviously of 1.5, so when they go to cross like this, you've always got one that's rocking around and not quite reaching. So what I've done also, I've put a tiny spot of PVA glue as the crosses as well. That way if it pings off at one end, it won't harm too much. So the way I've been doing it, I'll show you on this one. Okay, now on this particular one, I think if we do this side, it'd be easier to show. Okay, so what we need to do is come along, and this particular wire is going to sit in here. So what I do is we put a blob off of our little mat down here on both ends, alright? So then you just come along, okay, then what I tend to do is I'll sit one end in, let one end fall, okay, and then work it over to the area it is. It's in that area now, so I've now got a tiny little paintbrush. Okay, so we just get rid of that bit there. We can push him down slightly, then you can grab a little bit of thinned PVA, alright, and we can just touch this corner, let it flow all around, and the other ones, because you'll make a nicer join and you'll make sure it stays in place. So we just put another little bit up here, and it will dry clear, so we don't have to worry about it. It's just holding it in place. This other one's got another up here. If I redo it, you can see it. Okay, but that's the way it makes all this wiring fit and work very well. Now I know it's very hard to see, but hopefully you can get an idea of this wiring as it's coming through this. And to be honest, it really does bring it to life. You know, it's one of those things we were saying, like, do you need to do it? And I was speaking to other people and they were saying, yeah, well, you're never going to see it. I tell you what, it's a lot of fun to do. So I've got a couple more little ones to go on here, and then to be honest, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it overnight to totally dry off and go firm on these, because these little wires, obviously, you know, they're not doing anything structurally, but if they ping off, it's going to be a pain to get them all to sit back in. As soon as we've done that bit, then we can start to cover it all up, where this little one obviously goes on this side, and then he's going to fit in something like that, and it will go in, and it will really start to look the part down here. But the wiring, I think, will really help it sort of come to life and show its true colours and things like that, and all this lovely detail. The other thing I will do as well, I'm going to put some control lines, I'm going to feed them in from the back, PVA glue on the end again to the rudder pedals, just so we've got some wires going out the back end of it, so when you do look down you can see some wires poking out the back. Okay, so there we go, that's all that nice wiring detail in there. To be honest, the control rods, I haven't put them all in because I can't see the point of going around putting hundreds of wires in that we're never going to see. But certainly these ones on the side that we've put on here with, I presume it's like a trim handle, I'm not too sure if it's going to fit in, because I'm not that certain about these side bits are going to have enough room for it to go through, because you can probably see it's countersunk down here on this bit here. And obviously our wires are running to the outside, so what I might have to do is just cut them down, snip them a little bit short, but we're not going to go till we try and fit it. A couple of things we have done, we've done wood effect on the inside. Now watch your call outs for this, because obviously the outside on this particular case isn't going to be wood, but some of them it does. It calls out for it to be done wood, but ours is painted for the version we're doing, the E version, in the instructions. So obviously we've just done the inside, so when you look through, it's a sort of continuation of all this woodwork we've done. We've also put on the little tail skid and the little hydraulic ramp there. Now I have got a couple of confessions. First of all, I've put in small little holes for the control rods, which are going to then go from here to those said tail skid, and I managed to put mine upside down. One of those moments of madness. But the thing is, we're going to probably need a little bit of filler both sides, so I've put in a little bit of filler up here, but the rest of it we'll take care of later. So, in our first quest, we need to test fit. The other thing, well, you might be nice, we're nice and glossy here. This is because nothing to do with the paintwork, it's just a coat of primer, so I thought it could let it dry as we go. But what we do need to know is to find out, which side are we on? It's on this side, if these control rods on the outside are going to interfere as we place this in. And yes, they totally do. So what we're going to have to do, from our point of view, is lose a little bit of detail in these. So what we're going to do is just put my thumb, obviously, to make sure we don't lose any of the others. Close my eyes when we do this. Okay, now one of them's just pinged off, which I don't know where that one went, but unfortunately I wasn't holding it down far enough here, but I just want to see if this fits first. Now we've cut those back. It does seem to go in there now, because now it's all lining up at the top. Before it didn't, so now it's in. So what I want to do is just fit the tail area on as well, because I want to make sure it closes up. This bit, I do believe, just comes slightly higher, but the backs touch. The underside, as I said, just a little bit worrying that these pits don't go in. They do with a little bit of a squeeze, but slightly worrying. But that gives you an idea of what we'll get once we're in. Obviously we've got the back part to go in here, but then this one is then going to fit down on the top. So it's all a little bit fiddly getting all this in at the moment. It's one of those things where you look at the instructions and it seems to be right, and then I'm thinking, you know, oof, perhaps not. So what I'm going to do is just take those off a minute and try and fit this top deck. Now I have to be a little bit careful because it's still wet, but I'll just try and slide this in, because it's one of those things, if we pull this apart too much, it's going to destroy all our work. Now, okay, this is the hindsight bit. Probably would have been better to put this in before you put it together, because, to be honest, I am having a little bit of difficulty slipping this in now. Okay. Okay, that's one half, and the other, and to be honest, I've pulled it apart slightly just to get this all to go in. Okay, and there it is, it's sitting on the top there. So as I said, a lot less detail at the rear, we can't see now, we've lost that. Okay, now, option time. Do you want to paint this before you put it in? You know, what I'm trying to do with all of this work is try and get it painted before it's installed. Now the cockpit is going to be very hard because obviously we've got this woodwork effect and we don't want to lose any of that. But we just want to make sure as if that all of this fits together. So let's just slide this in, because obviously it's quite a crucial fit that this top part all blends in pretty seamless, because it's supposed to be a mix of obviously fabric and woodwork coming together. So we're just trying to edge it all in. Now, as I say, we've got this little lip just down here, which is quite important because it fits to the underside of this guy here, and then it should push in, and to be honest it's not going at all well in here, so we're just trying to see exactly where and why it doesn't fit in. Now some of this, I think, is, to be honest, is because of my control rods are slightly on the wrong side and are a little bit too high. So what I'm going to do, these little metal rods, I'm just going to snip them at the source, and hopefully we won't lose another one. Piano white is extremely tough, to the point where I can't even cut it here. So what we're just trying to do is nip the end of it off. There we go. So what it does, it pushes into the inside. Now I want to take this one out as well, because the problem we've got with this control wires is that when you're trying to bend them around the outside of each other, as you said, it's easier to go to the top side, but the trouble is it's such a close fit, that one will go to the inside, so we're happy, that unless these are sitting flush, it's never going to work. So they're sitting flush now on this side. So what we'll do is we'll just try this fit again and see what we get. See if we can get this to push in nice and tight, and that's looking a lot better fit now. Still think we're probably going to need some filler as this top deck goes down, because it doesn't meet this bottom particularly brilliant. It's okay, it is there. Now on these I'm just looking to see, I've only got the one problem one on this side, so we're just going to snip this little guy just up here. Watching your eyes. I'll find a better one, so we just pull this off because it's done with a bit of glue. The rest of these I think are okay. Okay, now that is going to fit now, and it all fits a lot better. Okay, so that is in, but this wooden deck, it is the thing. Now, do you want to do it here, or do you want to do it in a minute? That is the thing to it. Unfortunately now, this is where we lose all that lovely wood and the internal, so make sure you get some good photos of it before you nail this together, because otherwise once it is down, we will lose it. But that is what we need. So if you've got any more parts you need to get on the inside, make sure you get on with them now. I must admit, it is looking very nice down in there. We can see all the parts, I can see the control wires as much as we want to see, okay, and everything else. I just wish you could see a little bit more in there. So right, we're happy with how that is. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be quite brave with this. I'm going to glue this all into position as is in situ, okay, and we'll mask up these wooden bits afterwards, and hopefully we'll take a little bit of care of getting that done. So if you're happy with everything is on the inside, what we'll do, we're just taking our extra thin, okay, and we're just going to plenty of it flow right down on all these joints and around the back here. First of all, starting with the fuselage, it is bubbling up, it's just reacting with the filler, but we're not too worried about that. So on with the peg holding the other half. Okay, then just down here on the bottom, just going to leave it open a bit and then squash it together when we get going. These bits down, you can see the two holes underneath we've done for the rudder control wires, which will be coming through. Okay, bit of a squish. You can see, I don't know if these will quite go round. They will, which is a major miracle. Okay, so that's one on there. Okay, another one here somewhere. Another peg. No. Another one to the outside, perhaps one just down on here, just to hold that together. Not worried about the front yet, or this wooden deck. We'll do that in a moment when we're all happy. So we'll get all these fitted, okay, just like that. Now in the meantime, as that bit is drying, we'll just leave that to one side. We have over here, as I said, primed up the wing sections and everything else like that. Now, okay, this is also the other thing. Couple of things. Normally, if we were doing modern military aircraft, things like that, obviously we have post-shading, pre-shading, you know, and all those different things which break up the colours. Now, because we're dealing with fabric over wood, there's a slightly different way of doing it. Instead of having nice faint lines running around everywhere, so you've got nice looking panel lines and it comes in and out, so it's not universal, because what we've actually got in hindsight is a piece of wood lying there and the canvas is over the top. Because this canvas over the top, obviously if it's white, as is the underside will be, it will be very, very strong, but it needs to be a perfect line, obviously just for the bit of wood where it's actually touching. The same will go with the formers over the wings. So the bit where it's stretched over the top and down, okay, will be very, very dark because no light is penetrating it. So we need to sort of make that happen again. Now the easiest way to do that is going to mask it. So here's the option. Do you A, paint it the entire dope colour first that you want to do, so in our case we'll be using the deck tan colour XF55 right the way over it. Mask up all the areas, then spray it whatever colours you want afterwards. So in our case what we want is a slightly wooden colour, so the chances are what I'm going to do is mix a little bit of XF55 with a tiny bit of wood tan just to give it a darker colour, looks like it's the wood. Or do you do it the other way around? Personal choice to do it. The way I'm going to do it, to be honest, I'm going to do everywhere with a little bit of a mix of XF55 and a little bit of wood around. Okay, and then what we'll do, we'll mask it afterwards. So then what we can do is just come along with our tan colour, which is the underside colour, and just put it in everywhere. The other reason for doing the tan colour first is that obviously we've got to bring around to the leading edges of this, and it'll be easier to mask it afterwards, because masking on the inside is a lot easier than masking on the outside when you're doing curves and things like that. Then once we've got the underside down, we can do the top side, and we do all of these separate before fitting. But what we want to do now is let that little bit dry, make sure we're happy with it, okay? And then what we can do is move over to the spray bay as we're going to do now, so we can start work on these wings. Okay, so now we've got to get on with these wings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-shade it in a sort of wooden undercolour, for want of a better word. Okay, so what we're going to do is a mixture of XF51 and XF78. So to be honest, I had a little bit of XF78 on the go not so long ago. So what I'm going to do is just mix in a little bit more of the other colours. So we just take a clean pipette, X20A, I'm using Tamiya's own thinners with the Tamiya, and it's going to be roughly a 50-50 mix with this. Okay, so what we do, we just give these a shake. I've been using them a lot, so they should be fine. Okay, it's just the deck tan might need a little bit more because it's a new bottle, and sometimes when they've been sitting around they separate to a large amount. So what we do, okay, checking, having a look inside, see what it looks like. It looks quite nice, thick and creamy without looking watery on the top and lumpy at the bottom. Alright, so what we'll do, we're just going to pop along now. So wood colour going in first, okay, into there, then our deck colour. Now as I said, it's about a 50-50 mix between the two. Taking our brush, we'll give a bit of a stir around to see what we get. What we're ideally looking for is, well, ideally a wooden colour on the canvas, but what we're trying to do is just make this a slightly darker colour to it. And what I might do is I'm going to spray everywhere with this first colour initially, then I'm going to come back, I think, and do some wooden areas a little bit more. Now remember, you're only doing the underside, we're not doing the tops, so don't do what I was just about to do there and spray the wrong side. So we just pop these out of the way a moment. So we just start with this guy here, just put the extractor on. Okay, so checking our flow, waiting for the other colour to come through, because at the moment it's coming through that woody colour. I'm really having a look to see what we've got. What we're looking for, as I said, is a colour that, you know, is not a colour, it's more of a shade. We're not looking for wood here, we're looking for a different one. Now this has just been primed up already with a little bit of surface prime. This is the Vallejo stuff, just using the grey. It had a coat about half an hour ago. So what we do, we're just going to spray this on to really see what we get first. And because this is going over this primer colour, the primer itself is quite a light colour. Okay. So you can see we've got this type of colour, and I'm thinking maybe it's a little too strong. You know, so I think what we'll do is we're going to cut this back just a little bit, and we're adding quite a good dollop more of that initial colour, and what we're going to do is just thin it a little bit more, going in there, and then use our brush again and give this a good mix. As I said, we're looking for a tone rather than a new colour. Let's try that again. Remember, you've got to blow through what is in your area, so we'll do it over the top, see if we can change. You can already see it's a little bit lighter. That's what we don't want to happen. That's what you get for overloading your colour card. And when this happens, don't panic. What we do, grab some towel, flat on, and just dab off. Okay, and just use dabbing motions. With the clean side. So there we go. You can see we haven't really harmed it all at all. You don't have to worry too much. Things like this happen, don't worry about it. Make sure you haven't got any run down the side of your colour cut, because otherwise if that comes forward to the needle, you're suddenly going to get a big bang. So we just be a little bit more careful and overcoat that area. Okay, there we go. Alright, there's one bit done. So now we do the others. Now it's easier to go everywhere than it is to pick out exactly where the sort of formers are and the sprues of the wood, because otherwise what's going to happen, you might miss a bit. And when you're doing pre-shading, as we were talking about before, on like a modern aircraft or something else like that, you don't have to worry about it too much, because you can literally, a little bit of build up on the needle guard, you can literally just come along and repair them afterwards. But with this, it's quite a specific thing we want to show. We want it to look like it's wood underneath. So by putting this shading in, hopefully that will give us the look we're after. Now because this is primed up and everything, it doesn't take much to do it. Just make sure you do the leading edges. Okay, so now we've got these other lines down here. Just careful. Last one. Then what we're going to do is let these dry off for around about half an hour, because they need to be totally dry on this, and then we can come back and mask up, because otherwise we might run the risk, if you mask earlier, of actually peeling it off. If you have got the time, leave it overnight and come back to it a little bit later.